So unit 2 is about data representation and procedure activation. So just now, as I mentioned, data representation is how the data, what data you're using in a program, how that data will be represented so that the further manipulations will be done on that data, and the procedure activation. So the unit 2 coverage is the role of the types. Then what are the basic types of data representation? Assignment and local state, the environment model of evolution, arrays, records, union and variant records, then sets, pointers, two string tables, types and error checking. So whenever we are declaring any variable or any data, how the type of that data and the error checking will be done. Then modeling with the mutable data. Then introduction to procedures, that is, as I mentioned, to write a small block of code which will be considered or which will be called multiple times based on the requirement of that particular function. So just like in C programming, we are using functions same way, introduction to the procedures, then parameter passing methods, then scope rules for the names, nested scope in the source text, activation records, and lexical scope in C and Pascal programming. So this is the total unit coverage of our unit 2. So now we will start with the unit 2 with the data representation. So, but obvious, while doing this data representation and the procedure activation, basically we are using the imperative programming. So as already we have discussed what is imperative programming. So imperative programming is a oldest programming paradigm and which is totally based on the actions. So basically it is based on the Latin word imperare, that is nothing but giving a command. So based on that command, the further actions will be performed. So a program based on the imperative type of paradigm is made up of clearly defined sequence of instructions to the computer. So if you remember in the last unit, we have talked about the imperative programming syntax control flow sentences. So, but obvious, if you remember over there in the imperative programming, the actions or the instructions, basically the set of instructions are clearly defined for the computer, and therefore so the source code for the imperative language is a series of commands. So if you remember, we have seen a program is nothing but a set of sequence of instructions is given. So it is a series of commands and which specify what a computer has to do and when in order to achieve the desired results. So when we are saying which has to specify what a computer has to do, so but obvious, in order to perform a specific operation, how my control supposed to flow, if you want alternative options at that time, which particular control statements you are using and how the control will flow, each and everything will be specified properly in order to get the desired result. So imperative programming is basically a set of clearly defined sequence of instructions, and these instructions are clearly mentioned so that your computer will understand what to do and how to do in order to get the desired result. So basically, these are the examples of the imperative programming languages. So Fortran. So can anybody just tell me what is Fortran stands for? I have already told you what Fortran stands for.
Formula transformation.
Correct. Formula translation, and which is the oldest imperative type of programming language. After that, Pascal, Algol, C hash, C hash, then assembler programming, basic programming language, COBOL, Python, and Ruby. So these are the examples of the imperative programming languages. And out of these, you are familiar with C, Python, right? And in the last unit, I have given you an introduction about the Pascal. That is how the Pascal programs are supposed to write and all that, right? So even though there are many more, I have given few examples on this slide of the imperative programming languages. Out of that, you are familiar with 3 to 4 programming languages. Now, so basically, whenever we are going for the any programming language, as I mentioned that you are familiar with C, Python, and Pascal. Little bit about the Pascal. So basically, why we are choosing or why we are selecting the imperative programming language. So the basically the emphasis in imperative language is on data structure with the assignable components, and that is the components that can hold the individual values. So if you remember, we have seen that the basic of, can anybody just tell me what is the basic of imperative programming language? Basic component? Basic component of imperative programming language? Have we discussed about this or not?
Actions.
Yes, Disha?
Actions, basic unit.
No, it's not audible. You can type it in a chat. Commands, or instead of commands, we are saying that the basic component of an imperative programming language is actions, correct? So now whatever be the action you want to perform, for that, what type of data is required? So the emphasis in imperative language is on data structure. So what type of data structure you are supposed to use in the program, so that it is going to use that particular type of variable in the further manipulation. So that's why the data structures with the assignable components, and that components which can hold the individual values. So whenever I'm saying the integer, so when I'm saying the component a is equal to 10. So in this case, we are knowing that the data structure with the assignable component, it means a is equal to 10. So I'm using a, which is of type integer, right? And it is holding the integer value. So a holds integer value 10. So that's why the data structure with the assignable components, and that component which will going to hold a individual value. So 10 is assigned to a variable a. So the size and layout of a data structure tend to be fixed at a compile time in imperative language and before a program is run. So meaning is what? Whenever we are saying the size and layout of a data structure. So before I explain it to you, can you just tell me what are the basic data types you have learned previously? Yes. Have you learnt any data types in any language?
Yes, ma'am. Integer,
Okay.
character, float,
Integer.
double, yes,
Boolean.
boolean, even list.
So you have learnt integer, boolean, right? Then character also.
Yes, float,
Okay. Okay. Float.
list.
List is list will be then the uh, what we can say, a basic data type. I will come to this point afterwards. Okay. But now you have learned about the integer, character, boolean, float. These data types may be in C, C++, right? But whenever I'm saying a particular that a, whenever you are using the integer, so when I'm saying integer a, right? So basically, whenever I'm saying a data structure for a particular variable or a data type, but obvious, whenever I'm saying int a, so but obvious, depending on the type of programming language, the size will be defined. So for example, when I'm saying integer, it is using 2 bytes. Whereas when I'm saying character, how much size of character data type is there? Can anybody just tell me? Yes. when you are using a character, it means how many, how much size will be allocated or how much bytes will be allocated for the character data type.
1 byte.
1 byte, exactly. So when I'm saying integer, so size is fixed, right? So, but obvious in some programming languages, it is using integer as 2 byte, but in some programming languages with that particular data type, it may use 4 bytes also. So in imperative programming languages, whenever we are talking as a particular data structure, for that data structure, the size and the layout is going to be fixed at compile time. Now, when I'm saying compile time, it means, but obvious, whenever I'm going to execute my program, at that time, the size and the layout for that particular data structure is going to be fixed. It is not going to be changed. And the storage in imperative programming language must typically be allocated and deallocated explicitly. So meaning of this statement is what? Whenever I want to allocate a memory for any of the data structure, but obvious, I have to do it explicitly allocation, as well as once I will finish it off the program, I have to explicitly deallocate that memory. Deallocate means what? It has to be explicitly make it free for the further usage. So for imperative programming languages, it has to be allocated and deallocated explicitly. Now how it will be done and all that we will see in detail on the coming slides. So basically, what is the role of these type of data structure? So for example, suppose I want to design an application for the parking slot. That is, per day, how many vehicles are going to be parked in the parking slot. Okay, so in this particular case, but obvious, when I'm saying per day, how many vehicles are going to be parked in that particular parking area. So over here, the data object is per day. I'm using per day, that is nothing but the information in the application. So the day, so in the year, there are total 365 or 366 days. So a single day or the day will be considered as an object in this particular application. So the data objects and data representation objects in an application should have a corresponding representation. So now over here in my application, I'm saying a day, for example, first integer value indicate 1st of January. Okay, so but obvious, January 31 will be represented as a value 31 in the program. But when I'm saying May 6, but obvious, the integer value will be represented with 126. But whenever I want to do any particular operation or manipulation on this data, there should be some correspondence between the information or the data objects and the data representation of that object in the program. So there should be a relation or a correspondence between the information given in the application, and for that application, how you are representing or how you are using in your program, there has to be some relation. So now that's what I said. For the application, I'm saying 1 indicate 1st January. So for January 31, it will be 31. But when I'm saying May 6, the integer number which will represent May 6 will be 126. But it is going to be changed because the February, at the moment when my February is having the days 28, at that time it will be 126. But if it is 27, it will be something different. So for that, what I'm going to do, I'm going to use a variable D, which will represent a day of the year. So D, which will be represented in my program as variable N. Okay, and this variable N will be of type integer. So when I'm saying tomorrow, so but obvious, in my application, the operation tomorrow will be the next day of D. So D plus 1. So, but obvious, when I'm saying tomorrow, tomorrow of what? Tomorrow of the variable D in my application. But in my program, I'm saying N plus 1. But is it possible to multiply the days in the application? So some operations are difficult to perform with the application data object. So that's why there should be some proper correspondence between the data objects which you are using in your program and the data representation in your application. So, but obvious, when I'm saying they will be represented as variable n in the program, so at that time it will be easy for me to do the multiplication of two numbers, then addition of two numbers, but that is very difficult to do it with the data object which is specified in the application, that is the multiplication of 2 days. I can't do the multiplication of 2 days, right? Because that is not of any specific type. So that's why the relation, so that is the importance of the role of the types of data objects in your application and the data objects in the program which represent that particular information. So based on that, there are two types of the information or the values and their types. So there are basic type of the data object and constructed type. So just now as we have talked, basic types means what? It is integer, float, character. And when we are saying a constructed type, so constructed type means based on these basic types of values, we can have a sequence of or a list of similar data types together. So that is your constructed type. So I will give you an example over here of constructed type. As you are familiar with C programming, so basic types are just now as we mentioned on the board, that is integer, character, float, boolean, whereas constructed type is array. So can you give me any another example from C programming for constructed type? Constructed type means based on the basic types you are deriving or you are creating the another type of data type. So as I mentioned, array is what? It is a sequence of similar data items. That is, I will have a set of integer values together which will form an array. So that set of sequence of similar data items is called as array. So same way, can you give me any another example of constructed type in C programming?
Functions.
No, functions, I will not say it is a data type. It will be come under your procedures where you are having a set of instructions which you want to use it again and again. So it will support reusability. But we are talking about the data types.
Strings.
Strings, okay, correct. Strings is again a set of sequence of characters, correct? So array, then string. Might be you have heard about structures, or might be you have used structures also. Have you come across structures in C?
No, ma'am.
No, okay, no issues. So see, as we said that array, it is nothing but a set of sequence of similar data type or similar values like integer or float. So all, if when I'm saying a 10 integer value, so that 10 integer value will, or the collection of that values will be referred as array, which indicates it is a homogeneous type. But sometimes you have to design an application for a employee database. Okay, so now when I'm saying a employee database, so for employee database or a student database, if I want to create an application in order to store the information about a student or information about an employee, so what type of information you are going to store? Now we will consider student database. So for student information, in order to deal with or to handle a student information, now what type of information you are going to require? Can anybody just quickly tell me?
Name, roll number.
Correct. Name, roll number, then
Division.
Address.
address, division. So see,
String.
even though over here, yeah, somebody said one more field.
Division.
I just said branch, whichever branch.
Sorry, was when it got removed. So roll number, roll number of the student, name of the student, then address of the student, then division, then maybe if you want to store the marks of three subjects. Okay, so over here, when I want to have this information for a single student, so what will be the data type of a roll number in order to store the roll number information? What data type I'm going to use?
Int.
Integer.
Integer or int. When I'm saying name, address, or branch, at that time, what data type I will use?
String.
String. Correct. String. After that, if I want to declare the marks, okay. So in order to store the marks and calculate the percentage, then what data type I may use?
Double.
Float or double, but you see again over here float will be sufficient. So over here if we are going to look at for storing the student information in order to have roll number which is integer type, name which is of character or string type, and then for mark and result I'm going to use float, right? So over here I'm having a collection of the heterogeneous information. I'm having a heterogeneous atoms, and with the structures in C, you will be able to use these structures which will allow me to store different data types as a single atom. Okay, so I have basic types as integer, character, boolean, and float, whereas the constructed types I can say array, which comes under your homogeneous data type, whereas the structure which will hold the heterogeneous data. So that is constructed type, and this constructed type is based on the basic data type supported in that particular programming language. So I hope this concept of constructed type or the term constructed type is clear now, or any doubt? Should I proceed?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So now we will see in detail one by one. So values and their types. So when we are saying a basic types, integers, character, now in C programming we are referring it as a float, but in some programming language float is not there. It is integer, character, boolean. So the basic four data types in most of the programming languages is integer, character, float or real, and boolean. So can you just tell me, when I'm saying a integer, how much data it will allow me to store, or the type of range which is allowed with the integer type? Yes. Now when I'm saying an integer type which is 2 bytes, right? 2 bytes, it means 2 raised to 16, which will allow 64 data will be allowed to store with the integer data type. So, in addition to these basic data types, the language support constructed or structured types that are built up from the similar types and laid out using a sequences of location in the machine. So meaning is what? Just now as I explained you that from these basic types, so whenever I am saying integer, it will allocate 2 bytes, that is 16 bits of memory will be allocated in memory for that particular type of integer variable. And whenever I am saying integer 16, whereas when I am saying boolean, at that time how much memory will be allocated to boolean? Yes, for boolean how much memory will be allocated? For character, as you mentioned, 8 bits or 1 byte. So 2 raised to 8, it will be 256. So 256 all languages are going to allow us to support the constructed, or as we have just now, as I given you an example of the student database for the structural type which are built up from these basic or simpler data types by using a sequence of locations in the memory. So, but obvious, the values and their types will be going to be allocated. So whenever I am saying integer, it will allow me 64k of the type, and the values will be up to 64536. That is the maximum range with the integer in case of your C program. So that is nothing but the basic data types and their values. Integer it will be 2 bytes, boolean 1 bit, character 8 bits, whereas floats, for float, how much memory will be allocated? It will be a word, one word, which will be nothing but your 4 bytes. Okay, so integer 2 byte, float 4 bytes, character 1 byte, and boolean 1 bit. So this is the values and their types associated for that particular basic data type in that specific programming language. So basically any program, so we have already seen that a program is nothing but a set of the instructions or a sequence of commands. So any program is a set of instructions that are applied to certain data in a specific or in certain sequence. So whenever we are going to write a set of instructions, we will deal with a data object, variable and constant. So basically the data storage, whenever we are using any data object or any variable, but obvious, the data will be allocated. So when we are saying a storage, but obvious, there are two type of storages will be allocated, that is the actual and the virtual. So meaning is what? Whenever I am declaring any variable, just let me know whether it is visible or not. Is this visible? Blackboard is visible? So whenever I am saying int a, okay? So whenever I am saying integer, int a, this is my C programming syntax. So in a memory, wherever the memory is from the stack, now when I am saying int a, but obvious, my program will allocate a memory for this variable. Okay, so a is the variable, and some memory that is at the back end on the machine, the memory from the stack will be allocated for that particular object. So this is when you are allocating a memory from the stack, but obviously actual storage will be allocated, and but obvious this particular memory is having an address, suppose 11001 something like that. So each memory is having its own address. Okay. So, but obvious that specific address will be assigned, or it will be given that particular variable. A will be assigned, which is having an address 1001. So the memory will be allocated, and this memory will be allocated from the stack, that is from the RAM in your program. Whereas the virtual, it means, but obvious, the memory which is not exactly exist. So from the heap, the memory will be allocated, that is dynamically it will be allocated. It won't be exactly there. The data object, so in this particular case, but obvious, so data storage, that is the memory allocation will be done. Data object, so for that particular int a, this complete thing will be considered as a data object, which is going to have the memory address and the value associated with that particular variable. And but obvious, the type of that particular variable is nothing but it can be a program defined or system defined. So in this case, when I'm saying int a, it is a program defined data object. Whereas sometimes when you are doing, or maybe you are familiar with, whenever you are performing any manipulation, the system uses some temporary variables in order to hold the intermediate results. So that temp variable is nothing but the system defined data object in order to perform, or which will hold the intermediate results. So types of data objects is program defined type as well as the system defined data objects. So basically, whenever we deal with a data object, it is having the attributes, it is having a data values associated with that, and but obvious, the data object will be elementary or it is aggregate. So for example, just now I had given you an example of a structure or an array. So when I'm saying a data type of an object is elementary, it means it is from any of the basic data type, from integer, character, boolean or float. And when the data object of type of a data object is aggregate, it means either it is going to have a homogeneous or heterogeneous. So when I'm saying a homogeneous, can you give me an example? Homogeneous means which data type, or which will simulate the homogeneous aggregate data object? Can you give me an example? Because just few minutes before I have talked about homogeneous and heterogeneous.
Array.
Array.
Array is homogeneous, whereas heterogeneous will be a collection of different elementary types of data. So just now, as I had given you an example, is my blackboard is visible? Right. So whenever I'm declaring, so as I mentioned, int a, it is nothing but a program defined data object. So whenever I'm saying a, that is nothing but a data object. For that, the memory will be allocated from the RAM. That is nothing but from the stack, it will allocate a memory location for that variable. And but obvious, over here, 1001, that is the value. Now I'm assigning a is equal to, as I mentioned, a is equal to 1000. Take the memory location address is something 20,001. That is the memory location. That this is the address and this is the value. So when I'm saying int a is equal to 1001, it means this is the value which will be associated or which will be bind with that particular location. So it will assign my a variable with the value 1. Okay, so the data object A is going to have the memory allocated. So whenever I am declaring any variable, my machine or my computer will assign a memory location for that variable, and if I am assigning some value to that particular variable, but obvious A will be bound with the value which is you have assigned right now. So this is nothing but A. The first part indicated is a data object. Then the value which I'm assigning to A, that will be the value. And but obvious, when this particular statement A is equal to 20, it means the 20 value is going to be bound with a variable A, or A will be bounded with the value 20 in this particular example. So but obvious, whenever I'm saying this A is equal to 20, or whenever whatever be the value you are assigning to that variable, but obvious, this is called as a binding. So binding is nothing but the association between the attribute, that is nothing but a property of that variable, and an entity or the operation and a symbol. So in this case, A is nothing but my symbol, and whatever be the value, that is integer value which I am assigning. So there is a relation, or it is an association between that value and the symbol. And but obvious, but whenever I am going to perform, so based on this particular integer value, I am going to perform addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. So these are nothing but the operations which I am going to, or the operations associated with that particular entity. So variable and its property. So when I'm saying a name to a variable, but obvious, the type will be nothing but the attribute or a property associated with that particular name. So basically, whenever I'm saying a variable, variable is what? It is nothing but some name given to some atom or some a particular entity will be referred with a name. That is nothing but your variable. When your program name, so when I'm saying program name, with a program name, it will have the property as number of parameters in that particular program. Then next is parameters with your function or parameters with your procedure. At that time, the types of parameter, that is whether you are passing the integer value, whether you are using the float values, or whether you are using string data. So that will be the property associated with that particular function, parameters, or that type of parameters. So, but obvious, these types may be one to many or many to one. So, we will discuss this particular concept on the coming slide. So, types may be one to many or many to one. So, basically, this is nothing but the binding. So, binding, what we discussed, binding is nothing but the association between the attributes and an entity or an operation and a symbol. So, but obvious, this particular binding is of different type. So now when we are saying a binding time, so what is binding time? It is nothing but the association, the time at which this association takes place. So the association, just now as we have seen, the binding is what? It is nothing but the association between the attribute and the symbol, right? So when I'm saying an attribute, but obvious it is nothing but a property, a value, or the what we can say the type of that particular variable, and the symbol we can say. So, but obvious, at what time this association will take place, based on that it is considered as a binding time. So, binding time is what? The time at which binding takes place is called binding time. So, there are different types of binding: language design time, implementation time binding, compile time binding, linking time, and loading time binding. Okay, so basically when we are saying a language design time, so basically language design time is what? Now in the previous example of car parking, per day how many vehicles are parked. So in that case particularly, the language design time is what? We are trying to identify the object and its attribute. So language, so these are some example possible binding times. That is language design time, that is bind the operators symbols to the operations, right? So but obvious, we want to count the number of vehicles per day. So they will be one of the object and I want to count. So I'm going to perform the addition. So addition will be the type of operation. So language time, language design time is, this is an example of language design time binding. Now implementation time means what? Now for this particular day object, whether it will be how that data will be represented in my program, whether it will be of which type, that is what type of value that particular entity will hold, that is my implementation type of binding. Now compile time is what? Whenever your program is going to be compiled, right? So all of we know compiler, interpreter. Am I right? Whether
Yes.
you, correct. So whenever your program is going to be compiled, at that time the variables for that variable, the memory will be allocated. Whatever be the value you have assigned to that variable, that will be linked. That will be bind with that particular variable. That is compile time of binding. Now after this, might be the linking time and loading time is the first time you are coming across. So now I will explain you linking time binding is what. All of you are familiar with C programming, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Correct. So now in C program, you are including the stdio.h, or you are including math.h in order to use the square root or some mathematical functionality in your program. Yes or no?
Yes, ma'am.
Correct. So my linking time is what? whatever be the header files you have included in your program, so directly I can use a square root function or simply leave it about the square root. Simply when you are using the scanf and printf functions, so for that you have included standard input output header file, right? So but obvious at my linking time, what is my scanf, what is my printf, these functions, for that the stdio library which you have included in your program, that function is going to link with that particular library. Okay, so that is the linking of that function with your particular library file, that is your linking time of binding. Because my machine is not knowing what is scanf, what is printf. So when you are using these inbuilt functions of that particular programming language, you have to include that particular libraries. And these binding of these particular functions will be done at a linking time. Is that clear?
Ma'am, can you repeat it once again?
Okay, I will go slowly. Now, in C programming, all of you are familiar with importing the standard input-output file stdio.h.
Yes.
Now, so whenever you started with learning the C programming, you have used a scanf and printf function, right? Scanf to accept the input, printf to display something. But if you haven't included standard input output file, what will happen with your program? If I haven't included stdio.h in my program and I'm trying to use scanf and printf function, will my program will work?
No.
No. Meaning is what? I am having a set of library function related to input and output in my stdio.header file, and whenever my program is going to be linked, that is whenever my program will be going to, after compilation, it will link that scanf function with the library where it is loaded in a memory. So that is going to be linking of your function with the library. Is it clear?
Yes, ma'am.
That is linking time of binding. Now, after creating, after doing the compilation and linking time binding, last is the loading time binding. Okay, so now loading time binding is what? After doing a compilation, linking, now my program, your OBJ file will be loaded into main memory for the execution purpose. Okay, and that is called as, so, but obvious, I have a program file, you have compiled and all that. Now this program, for example, assignment 1.c, if you have written. Now after compilation and all that, this assignment will be loaded into my main memory RAM at that time. That is called as my loading time binding. Okay. So when my program will be loaded into main memory for execution, that is called as loading time binding. Is that clear? Is that clear? Because see, your program, when you are writing a program, it will be stored as a file, assignment.cpp file. This file will be stored on the disk. Right. For your disk, your memory is going to have some different address, and after compilation, it is going to load it into your main memory, and your main memory is going to have some different addresses. Okay, so maybe you will come across logical address, physical address in some hardware related subject, but just at this particular moment, you just keep in mind your program is loaded into main memory, and when it is get loaded for the execution in main memory, that is called as your loading time binding. So this is your language design time, implementation, compile time, and linking and loading time binding. So basically, based on this, there are main two categories of binding, that is early binding and late binding, which is also referred as static binding and dynamic binding. So I hope all of you are knowing about the static and dynamic keyword usage. Static is one, that is early binding. So over here, from this particular type of binding, that is design time binding, implementation time binding, and compile time binding. So these, my compile time binding is referred as static binding. So at the same time, out of these 5 types of binding, design time, implementation time, and compile time bindings are referred as early binding, whereas linking time, loading time bindings are referred as dynamic binding or late binding. Now, after this binding, these are some examples which already I explained you. That is bind operator symbols to the operation, that is design time. Then you how to represent that particular data object in your program by using the language, that is nothing but your language implementation time. That is I have to decide what data type I have to consider for that particular data object. Then compile time, that is the variables are going to be bind with a memory location or with that particular value, that is compile time. Linking time, loading time, I have already explained you. And runtime, that is a binding a non-static local variable to a memory cell. That is when I'm accepting a value from for a variable A. In this particular case, A, when I'm accepting a value from the user, that will be runtime. So when I'm saying A and runtime, I said 100. So that 100 value will be assigned to that memory cell at a runtime. So these are some examples of the binding times. Now next is the variable declaration. So now how I can declare a variable. So there are 2 types of the variable declaration. One is explicit type of declaration and the another one is implicit type of declaration. So what we mean by explicit declaration? Explicit declaration of a variable is a program statement used for declaring the type of variable. And explicit, this is explicit type. That is explicitly I'm mentioning what will be the data type of that particular variable. And implicit declaration is what? It is a default mechanism for specifying the type of a variable, that is the first appearance of the variable in the program. Meaning is what? My program or my application will have a default mechanism to define or to specify the type of the variable. So can you give me the example of implicit and explicit data type, because you are knowing both type of languages? Yes. Now, all of you are learning Python programming.
Yes, ma'am.
Correct. So in Python programming, is my board is visible?
No, ma'am.
Now is it visible?
Yes.
Correct. Now, so first I will write in C program. C program. So in C programming, if I want to declare an integer variable, I have to write int A. Am I right?
Yes, ma'am.
Whereas in Python, I am saying that A is equal to suppose 10. What will happen? Am I declaring over here the data type of this variable? Whereas when I'm saying A and this way, and whereas in C programming, if I am using A is equal to this way, what will be what will happen when you are referring in C program? That is, I have declared in A, I am trying to assign a character C to A. Is it going to be possible? What will happen with your C program? When I'm saying in A, this is explicitly I'm mentioning the data type of the variable. Okay, and whenever I'm explicitly mentioning, that is, I'm declaring A is an integer variable for the rest of my program as an integer type. And then I'm trying to assign a character value to this integer, it won't work. Immediately the C program will give type mismatch. Am I right? All of you are agreed with me?
Yes, ma'am.
Correct. Whereas now you are also writing Python program. So when I am writing A is equal to 10, it will work. Am I right? It will take or it will assign a value to variable A. But after some instructions, when I'm saying A is equal to, I'm assigning a character value to A. What will happen with Python? My Python program is having a default mechanism that it will implicitly convert. Over here, when I'm using A is equal to 10, implicitly it will consider this variable as integer. But when I'm assigning a character to this variable, implicitly it will convert or it will take that particular variable as character over here. I hope now it is clear what is implicit and what is explicit variable declaration.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Correct. And on the slide also, some examples are written. Explicit. So as name indicates, explicitly we are declaring the a statement using some type of that variable. Whereas implicit, the mechanism, there is a default mechanism with your system which will specify that particular type. So there is, as I have given an example of a Python, same way there is a Perl language in which by using dollar sign it will declare a scalar data type, at the rate sign which will indicate a array declaration, and percent sign which will declare the hash 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 begin statement. Whereas in Fortran, whenever you are declaring the integer values, it will always begin with I to n capital letter. So whenever your statement is starting with I to n with any character, that is, for example, if I'm saying m and some value, automatically Fortran will understand that this is a integer data. And one more example is here ML and other languages which use sophisticated type inference mechanism in order to use a implicit declaration.
Hello? Hello? Is it audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, there was some power failure was there, so I got disconnected. So we were talking about the data types and implicit and explicit data declarations. Okay, so I hope you have understood that implicit and explicit data declaration.
Yes, ma'am.
Or if you are having any doubt, you can unmute and just go ahead. Any doubt? Hello, is it audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, there is some problem of electricity. It is on, going off and on. Due to power failure, I got disconnected again. So anyways, I hope you have understood implicit and explicit variable declaration.